My name is Patsy, and I'm 68 years old. When my son Will and his wife Melissa told me there wasn't enough room for me on their family trip to Disneyland, I felt my heart shatter into pieces. Watching from Facebook as they enjoyed the vacation with 13 of Melissa's relatives, while I sat home alone, was a turning point in my life. Instead of confronting them with anger or hurt, I made a decision that would forever change our relationship. Let me know where you're watching from and hit the subscribe button to join me on this journey. Sometimes, silence is more powerful than any words could ever be. I've been a widow for 15 years now, since my beloved husband Jack passed away from a sudden heart attack. We'd been married for 33 wonderful years, and losing him left a hole in my heart that I thought could never be filled. After his passing, I threw myself even more into my career as an elementary school teacher and into supporting my son's growing family. Teaching was my passion for 40 years. I specialized in 3rd grade, loving that age when children are curious about everything and still think their teacher knows all the answers to life's big questions. The classroom was where I felt most alive, guiding young minds and watching them light up with understanding. Even now, 5 years into retirement, former students still stop me in the grocery store to say hello, many of them grown with children of their own. My son William, Will to everyone who knows him, is 42 now and a successful corporate attorney with a prestigious firm in Phoenix. He married Melissa, a marketing executive, 11 years ago. They have 2 wonderful children, Taylor, my 14-year-old granddaughter, who's brilliant with mathematics and music, and Jaden, my 11-year-old grandson, who has his grandfather's charm and knack for science. They live in a beautiful 5-bedroom house in Scottsdale, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in the area. My life has always revolved around Will and his family. From the day my grandchildren were born, I've been there for every milestone, every challenge, every celebration. For years, I've picked the kids up from school every Wednesday, kept them overnight, and taken them to their weekend activities when Will and Melissa had work commitments. During summer breaks, the kids often stayed with me for weeks at a time while their parents worked. My financial contributions to their family have been substantial as well. When Will and Melissa were buying their home 7 years ago, I contributed $80,000 toward their down payment, nearly half my retirement savings. I've paid the tuition for both children at Oakwood Academy, an exclusive private school, since kindergarten. That's $15,000 per child each year coming directly from my teacher's pension. While they live in luxury in Scottsdale, I've remained in the modest 3-bedroom ranch house where Will grew up in an older suburb of Phoenix. It's paid off comfortable and filled with memories, but nothing fancy. My living room furniture is 20 years old. My kitchen could use updating, and I drive a 10-year-old Toyota Camry that Jack bought shortly before he died. None of this ever bothered me. My joy came from seeing my family thrive, especially knowing how proud Jack would have been of his son and grandchildren. But over the past few years, I've noticed subtle yet troubling changes in our family dynamic. Melissa has always been polite but distant. In recent years, though, she's taken increasing control over family decisions. Will, who was once so close to me, began deferring to her on everything from holiday plans to when I could see the grandchildren. Invitations to dinner became less frequent. Plans we made would often be canceled last minute with vague excuses. "Sorry, Mom, something came up at work," Will would say. Or, "The kids have a sudden project due." Or, "Melissa isn't feeling well today." At first, I made excuses for them. They were busy professionals with active children. Of course, their lives were hectic, but a pattern emerged that became harder to ignore. I was welcome when they needed childcare financial help or home-cooked meals during their busy weeks. But when it came to family celebrations, vacations, or even casual weekend gatherings with their friends, I found myself increasingly left out. "We're just having couples over, Mom," Will would explain when I heard about a backyard barbecue after the fact. "You would have been bored." Or Melissa would say, "The restaurant is really meant for younger crowds. You wouldn't have enjoyed it." I began to feel like an employee rather than a family member, called upon when needed, dismissed when not. Still, I told myself not to be oversensitive. Family dynamics are complicated, I reasoned. Perhaps this was just the natural evolution of relationships as children grow and establish their own households. Then came the Disneyland incident that would change everything. It was a Tuesday evening in April when Jaden burst through my front door, waving a certificate with pride beaming from his face. "Grandma Patsy, I won first place in the regional science fair. My volcano experiment beat out 70 other kids." I scooped him into a hug, my heart swelling with pride. "That's amazing, sweetheart. I knew you could do it. Your grandfather would have been so proud." Will followed behind, smiling broadly. "We're thinking of doing something special to celebrate. Maybe a family trip." "That sounds wonderful," I said, already mentally calculating what I might contribute to make this special for Jaden. That Sunday, during our weekly dinner at my house, a tradition I'd maintained since Will was in college, the topic came up again. "We've decided to take the kids to Disneyland," Will announced as I served my homemade apple pie, his favorite dessert since childhood. "Disneyland? Oh, the children will love that," I said, remembering how Will's eyes had lit up when Jack and I took him there for his 10th birthday. "When are you thinking of going?" "Memorial Day weekend," Melissa replied, scrolling through her phone rather than making eye contact. "We'll take advantage of the long weekend and stay for 4 days." "That's perfect," I said enthusiastically. "I'd be happy to help watch the kids so you two can have some adult time in the parks too. And of course, I can contribute to the expenses." Melissa finally looked up from her phone, exchanging a quick glance with Will. "Actually, my sister Amanda is coming with her husband and kids, and my cousin Brittany too." "Oh," I said, trying to hide my disappointment at not being explicitly included. "Well, that sounds like fun. The more the merrier." Will quickly changed the subject to Taylor's upcoming piano recital, and the Disneyland trip wasn't mentioned again that evening. 2 weeks passed. I called Will to ask about the details of the trip, wondering what I should pack and when we should leave. There was an uncomfortable silence before Will spoke. About that, Mom. There's something we need to discuss." My stomach tightened already, sensing what was coming. "The thing is," Will continued, his voice unnaturally formal, "we've already booked the hotel rooms. 3 rooms, 1 for us and the kids, 1 for Amanda's family, and 1 for Brittany and her boyfriend. With the holiday weekend, everything else in the area is fully booked." "I see," I said, my voice barely audible. "It's just that, well, there wouldn't be enough room for you," he finished lamely. "I understand," I replied, though I didn't. "Not really. Maybe next time." "Definitely next time," Will agreed, relief evident in his voice. "The kids will want to go again for sure. We'll plan better." After we hung up, I sat in my silent kitchen staring at the family photos on my refrigerator. Tears welled up, but I refused to let them fall. Something didn't add up about Will's explanation. 3 days later, the truth revealed itself on Facebook. Melissa posted photos of their arrival at the Grand Californian Hotel. The caption read, "Family vacation begins so blessed to have 4 generations together at the happiest place on earth." I scrolled through the photos with increasing disbelief. There wasn't just Will, Melissa, the children, Amanda's family, and Brittany. There was also Melissa's other sister, Catherine, with her husband, Melissa's brother, Tyler, and his girlfriend, 3 of Melissa's cousins, and most painfully, Melissa's mother, Barbara. 13 relatives from Melissa's side of the family, all finding room on this trip, just not room for me. Throughout the weekend, my phone filled with notifications as Melissa tagged new photos, group shots in front of the castle, the children hugging Mickey Mouse, everyone wearing matching custom t-shirts that read, "Johnson Family Disney Adventure 2025. My last name is Wheeler. My grandchildren are Wheelers." Yet somehow this had become a Johnson family event, Melissa's maiden name. In none of the dozens of photos or lengthy captions was I mentioned. Not even a "wish you were here, Grandma Patsy." To anyone viewing these pictures, it would appear my grandchildren had only one grandmother, Barbara Johnson, who beamed from the center of every group photo. The final blow came when I saw a video of Jaden being celebrated at a special character dinner. "Congratulations on your science fair win," the caption read. The same achievement that had supposedly inspired this trip. The achievement I'd helped him prepare for staying up late, helping him perfect his volcano design and practice his presentation. As I watched my grandson blow out a candle on a Mickey-shaped dessert surrounded by Melissa's family, but with no empty chair to mark my absence, something inside me finally broke. And yet something else, something stronger, began to form in its place. The pain I felt was unlike anything I'd experienced since losing Jack. It was a unique kind of heartbreak, being erased from my own family while still very much alive. I spent that night pacing my living room, unable to sleep, replaying years of interactions in my mind. The 200 a.m. clarity was harsh but necessary. This Disneyland trip wasn't an isolated incident, but the culmination of a pattern that had been developing for years. I'd been willfully blind to it, making excuses and accepting scraps of attention while continuing to give everything I had, emotionally, practically, and financially. Around 3:30 a.m., I found myself pulling out photo albums. There was Will as a baby with Jack and me gazing adoringly at him. Will's first day of school with me, kneeling beside him, straightening his little backpack. Will's high school graduation, college graduation, wedding day. In each photo, the love in my eyes was unmistakable. Then I found more recent photos, Taylor's and Jaden's births, their birthday parties, school events. In these, I noticed I was increasingly at the periphery, often the one taking the photo rather than in it. In the few where I did appear, I was rarely next to my grandchildren, usually separated by Melissa or her mother Barbara. The sun was rising when I finally called my closest friend Janet. Despite the early hour, she answered immediately. "I've been waiting for this call for years," Janet said after I explained what happened. "Patsy, I've watched them take advantage of you since the day Will married that woman. You've been a doormat, and they've been wiping their feet on you." "That's a bit harsh," I protested weakly. "Is it? You gave them a down payment for a house you're never invited to unless they need free childcare. You pay private school tuition but aren't included in school functions. You cook Sunday dinner every week while Melissa sits scrolling through her phone. And now they go to Disneyland with her entire extended family but claim there's no room for you." Her bluntness hurt, but I couldn't deny the truth in her words. What should I do? Confront them? Demand an apology? What would that accomplish? Janet asked. They'd make excuses, maybe feel guilty for a week, then go right back to the same behavior. No, Patsy. It's time you lived for yourself for once. I spent the next few days examining my life with painful honesty. I scrolled through my text messages with Will and realized I always initiated contact. I reviewed my calendar and counted dozens of times I'd rearranged my plans to accommodate their needs, while they'd canceled on me at least 20 times in the past year alone. I recalled how Taylor had recently declined my invitation to our traditional grandmother-granddaughter lunch date because, in her words, Mom says I need to focus on my social connections with girls my own age. The phrasing was so adult, so unlike my granddaughter, that I knew they were Melissa's words. Even more troubling was Jaden's increasing reluctance to spend time at my house. Mom says your TV is too small for proper gaming, he'd explained innocently last month, and the internet is too slow. They were teaching my grandchildren to see me as inadequate, outdated, and unimportant. That realization hurt worst of all. One morning, about a week after the Disneyland photos started appearing, I woke up with absolute clarity. I was 68 years old. My husband was gone. I'd spent my life serving others. My students for 40 years, my son for 42 years. When had I ever put myself first? I thought about the dreams Jack and I had shared for our retirement, travels we'd planned, experiences we'd looked forward to. After his death, I'd folded those dreams away, believing my only purpose was supporting Will's family. But what if there could be more to my remaining years than being an on-call babysitter and ATM machine? I will not be a victim, I said aloud to my empty kitchen. I will not spend whatever time I have left feeling unwanted and unappreciated. The decision crystallized in that moment. It was time to reclaim my life. The next morning, I pulled out the beautiful leather-bound journal Jack had given me for our 30th anniversary. It had remained empty all these years. I'd never felt I had anything important enough to write in such a special book. Now I opened to the first page and wrote in bold letters, Patsy's next chapter. First, I needed to understand my financial situation precisely. I'd always been careful with money, and Jack had left me well provided for with life insurance and investments. My teacher's pension was modest but reliable. My house was fully paid off, but how much of my savings remained after years of subsidizing Will's family? A visit to my financial advisor, Richard, was eye-opening. After reviewing my accounts, he looked at me with concern. Patsy, you've withdrawn nearly $300,000 over the past decade. School tuition house, down payment loans to your son that were never repaid. At this rate, you'll deplete your savings entirely within 5 years. I felt a flush of shame, then anger. Not at Will, but at myself for being so careless with my financial security. What if I stopped these expenditures immediately? I asked. What would my situation look like then? Richard ran new projections and his expression lightened. That would change things significantly. If you stop the tuition payments and additional gifts and perhaps make some modest investments, you could not only preserve your capital but potentially grow it. And if I wanted to use some of my savings for myself? For travel, perhaps? Richard smiled. You've earned it, Patsy. With proper planning, you can enjoy your retirement and still leave a legacy for your grandchildren. But I'd recommend setting up direct trusts for their college education rather than continuing to hand money to your son. I left his office with a comprehensive financial plan and a growing sense of liberation. That evening, I joined the Facebook group called Solo Women Travelers Over 60 and was amazed by the vibrant community of women like me, many widowed or divorced, who were exploring the world on their own. Their stories fascinated me. A 65-year-old former nurse who had walked the Camino de Santiago in Spain, a 72-year-old grandmother who had taken a cooking course in Thailand, a woman my exact age who had rented an apartment in Paris for 3 months to study art history. These women weren't sitting at home waiting for their children to include them in family plans. They were creating rich, meaningful lives on their own terms. Their courage and joy were contagious. I stayed up until midnight researching luxury tour companies that catered to older solo travelers. One particular company, Cultural Journeys, offered a 45-day grand tour of Europe that hit every destination Jack and I had dreamed of visiting together. London, Paris, the French Riviera, Rome, Florence, Venice, Barcelona, Madrid, Vienna, Prague, Amsterdam, and the Swiss Alps. The price was steep, nearly $30,000. But it included 5-star accommodations, most meals, private guides, and transportation between cities. It would leave in exactly 2 months shortly after Memorial Day. My finger hovered over the Book Now button. Was I really going to do this? I thought of my grandchildren at Disneyland without me, of the Johnson family shirts that excluded me even in name. I clicked book. The next day, I met with my attorney to update my will. I established separate college trust funds for Taylor and Jaden that would activate when they turned 18, ensuring the money would go directly to their education rather than through Will and Melissa. I revised the distribution of my estate, allocating a portion to establish a scholarship fund at the elementary school where I'd taught for 4 decades. This is a significant change, my attorney noted. May I ask what prompted it? Let's just say I've realized the importance of establishing clear boundaries, I replied. My preparations accelerated. I applied for a passport, something I'd never needed before. I bought high-quality luggage, comfortable walking shoes, and versatile travel clothes. I downloaded language learning apps and began practicing basic phrases in French, Italian, and Spanish. Through it all, I told no one in my family about my plans. When Will called to schedule the usual Sunday dinner, I simply said I was busy working on a personal project. When Melissa texted asking if I could watch the children for a weekend in June, I replied that I would be unavailable all summer. I was taking control of my life again, and it felt exhilarating. A week after the Disneyland trip, Will finally called. He spoke as if nothing unusual had happened, describing the rides the children had enjoyed and the character meals they'd experienced. "Sounds wonderful," I said, my tone pleasant but noticeably cooler than usual. "Taylor has a recital this Thursday," he continued. "I know it's short notice, but we thought you might want to attend." In the past, I would have immediately rearranged whatever plans I had. This time I said, "I'm afraid I have a prior commitment that evening." There was a pause. "Oh, what is it?" "Just some personal business I need to take care of," I replied vaguely. Another pause. "Well, maybe we can record it for you." "That would be nice," I said. The following week, Melissa texted me directly, something she rarely did unless she needed something. "Hi, Patsy, wondering if you can take the kids this weekend. Will and I have a work event Saturday night that might run late. They could stay over, and we'd pick them up Sunday." In the past, I would have responded immediately with enthusiasm. Now, I waited several hours before replying. "Sorry, I have plans this weekend. Hope you find someone." Her response was swift. "What plans?" I didn't appreciate the demanding tone or the implication that I couldn't possibly have anything important to do. "Personal plans," I replied simply. Within minutes, my phone rang. It was Will. "Mom, is everything okay? Melissa said you can't watch the kids." "Everything's fine," I assured him. "I just have plans this weekend." "What kind of plans?" he pressed, echoing Melissa's demanding tone. "Personal ones," I repeated. "I'm sure Amanda or Barbara would be happy to help with the children." The mention of Melissa's family seemed to catch him off guard. "They're not as convenient as you," he said, then immediately seemed to realize how that sounded. "I mean, they live farther away." "I understand, but I'm not available this weekend." After a moment of uncomfortable silence, he asked, "Are we still on for Sunday dinner?" Sunday dinner at my house had been a tradition for years. I'd spend all day cooking Will's favorites while Melissa would arrive, barely help, and often make subtle comments about my outdated recipes or serving dishes. "Actually, I need to take a break from hosting for a while. I'm working on reorganizing my home." Another silence. "Mom, what's going on?" "You're acting different." I kept my voice calm. "Nothing's going on, Will. I'm just focusing on some personal projects right now." The real confrontation came a few days later when Will showed up at my house unannounced. I was in the midst of sorting through decades of accumulated belongings, deciding what to store, what to donate, and what to take with me to Europe. "What is all this?" he asked, staring at the boxes labeled Donate and Storage in my living room. "Just some long overdue spring cleaning," I said. He walked around picking up items I'd sorted for donation. "You're getting rid of Dad's old records and the holiday decorations, Mom. What's going on?" I set down the photo album I was reviewing and faced my son directly. "Will, I think we need to talk about what happened with the Disneyland trip." His face flushed. "Is that what this is about? Look, I told you there wasn't enough room." "There was room for 13 members of Melissa's family," I interrupted quietly, "including her mother, her siblings, cousins, and their partners. But somehow, no room for me." Will looked down, unable to meet my eyes. "That wasn't my decision. Melissa's family had already arranged everything, and her mom was insistent on coming. And you couldn't stand up for me, couldn't say, my mother should be included in our family vacation." "It's complicated, Mom. Melissa's family contributed financially." "And I haven't?" I asked incredulously. Who pays for your children's education? Who gave you the down payment for your house? Who has provided free childcare for years? That's different, he muttered. Yes, it is different, I agreed. Because family isn't about financial transactions. It's about respect and inclusion. I've always been there for you, and your family will. But lately, I've felt like an employee rather than a mother and grandmother, called upon when needed, dismissed when not. That's not fair, he protested weakly. Isn't it? When was the last time you invited me to your home just to spend time together? When was the last time you asked about my life, my interests, my needs? Will had no answer. I'm not angry, I continued more gently. I'm just finally seeing things clearly, and I've decided it's time for some changes in my life. What kind of changes? He asked suspiciously. I smiled slightly. That's my business, Will. Just as your family plans are apparently your business. Sometimes we need space to recognize each other's value. He left shortly after, confused and unsettled. I felt a mixture of sadness and determination. The distance between us hurt, but it was necessary. Sometimes relationships need to be rebuilt on a foundation of mutual respect rather than obligation and convenience. In the weeks that followed, I noticed subtle shifts. Will called more often, actually asking about my day rather than immediately launching into requests for help. Melissa sent a text inviting me to dinner at their home, something that hadn't happened in over a year. I declined, politely citing prior commitments, but suggested we might plan something for after the summer. They were beginning to sense the vacuum my absence created in their lives. But it was too late to change my immediate plans. My passport had arrived, my European tour was paid for, and I was ready for the adventure of a lifetime. On a bright morning in early June, I placed a sealed letter on my kitchen table, locked my front door, and climbed into the taxi waiting to take me to Phoenix Sky Harbor International Airport. The letter contained my itinerary, contact information for emergencies, and a brief explanation of my decision to travel. I'd arranged for a neighbor to collect my mail and water my plants. My bills were set to autopay. I'd left no loose ends, just the freedom to fully embrace this new chapter. Settling into my seat on the flight to London, I felt a mixture of terror and exhilaration. At 68 years old, I was about to embark on my first international trip, my first solo journey, my first real adventure since Jack died. Was I being foolish? Perhaps, but as the plane lifted off, carrying me away from a lifetime of putting others first, I couldn't help but smile. London welcomed me with its iconic sights and sounds. I stood in Westminster Abbey, where kings and queens had been crowned for centuries, and felt my perspective shifting. My family drama seemed so small in the context of this ancient place. In the British Museum, surrounded by artifacts thousands of years old, my 68 years felt like the blink of an eye, with potentially many more blinks to come. My tour group consisted of 24 travelers, mostly women around my age, many traveling alone like me. Margaret, a spirited Australian widow of 70, became my immediate friend. Francois, a charming Canadian gentleman in his 70s, offered gallant assistance with luggage and took group photos. We formed a tight-knit community of late-life adventurers, sharing meal stories and the wonder of new experiences. In Paris, I discovered a love for Impressionist art that I'd never had the opportunity to explore. Standing before Monet's water lilies at the Orangerie, I felt tears streaming down my face at the beauty I'd denied myself for so long. It's never too late to discover new passions, Margaret whispered, squeezing my hand. Rome brought the majesty of the Colosseum and Vatican City. In Barcelona, I fell in love with Gaudi's whimsical architecture and the energy of Las Ramblas. Vienna entranced me with its imperial grandeur and musical heritage. In Prague, I marveled at the medieval astronomical clock still marking time after 600 years. Throughout my journey, I received increasingly worried messages from Will. The first came about 3 days after I left. "Mom, where are you? We came by the house, and you're not there. Your neighbor said you're traveling. Call me ASAP. I waited until I was settled in my London hotel to reply with a simple text. I'm fine. Taking a trip I've always wanted to experience. We'll be away for a while. His response was immediate. What do you mean a while? Where are you? How long will you be gone? Why didn't you tell us? I replied, I'm exploring Europe. About 6 weeks total. I didn't tell you because you didn't seem interested in my plans when I mentioned having some. Enjoying London now. We'll check in periodically. Don't worry. The text continued over the following weeks, evolving from demanding to concerned, to something approaching respectful interest. Mom, please call us. The kids are worried. Are you really in Paris? Taylor has a project on France and wants to ask you questions. Melissa's mom said traveling alone at your age is dangerous. Do you have people looking out for you? Finally, your photos from Rome look amazing. Dad always wanted to go there, didn't he? I hope you're having a wonderful time. We miss you. I responded to each message briefly but warmly. I sent postcards to the grandchildren from each city describing the sights, sounds, and tastes I was experiencing. I shared carefully selected photos on Facebook, not to make anyone jealous, but to document my journey and perhaps inspire other women my age to pursue their dreams. Halfway through the trip while exploring Barcelona, I made a life-changing decision. The city had captured my heart with its perfect blend of beach culture, architecture, and energy. On impulse, I contacted a real estate agent who specialized in helping foreigners purchase property in Spain. Many Americans and Canadians have second homes here, explained Sophia, the elegant agent who showed me several properties. Barcelona is perfect for winter months, especially when Arizona is nice, but Europe is cold and dark. You get sunshine, mild temperatures, and incredible culture. I fell in love with the small but beautifully renovated 2-bedroom apartment in the Gothic Quarter, with a tiny balcony overlooking a charming plaza. The price was less than I'd expected. 300,000 euros, well within my means after adjusting my financial priorities. I could spend 3 months here each year, I realized aloud. Winter in Barcelona, spring and fall in Phoenix to see my grandchildren, summer traveling to new places. Sophia smiled knowingly. Many of my clients started with similar plans. Some now live here permanently. By the time I left Barcelona, I had made an offer on the apartment. By Vienna, it had been accepted. I would close on the property and receive the keys on my last day in Europe. With each new city, each new experience, I felt myself transforming. The timid grandmother who had accepted exclusion and disrespect was fading away. In her place emerged a confident, adventurous woman who understood her own worth. 68 is just a number, Francois declared one evening over dinner in Amsterdam. Life is for living at any age. We all raised our glasses to that. After 45 extraordinary days, I returned to Phoenix with a golden tan, a sophisticated new hairstyle, courtesy of a salon in Paris, hundreds of photos, a journal filled with memories, and keys to my Barcelona apartment. More importantly, I returned with a new perspective on my life and relationships. Will, Melissa, and the children were waiting at the airport arrival gate. I barely recognized Taylor, who seemed to have grown 2 inches in my absence. Jaden held a handmade sign reading, "Welcome home, Grandma Patsy." Their expressions were a mixture of relief, curiosity, and something I hadn't seen directed at me in years: respect. "Mom, you look different," Will said, embracing me cautiously. "Really good, but different." "Travel agrees with me," I replied with a smile. Melissa's hug was stiff, but seemed genuine. "We've been following your photos online. It looked amazing." The children bombarded me with questions on the drive to my house. What was the Eiffel Tower really like? Did I try escargot? Were the gondolas in Venice scary? Did I bring them souvenirs? I laughed, promising to share everything over dinner, which, to my surprise, Melissa had arranged at my house with food already delivered from my favorite Italian restaurant. After the children were settled in the living room with their European gifts, a model Eiffel Tower kit for Jaden, a handcrafted leather journal from Florence for Taylor, Will and Melissa joined me in the kitchen. "Mom, we need to apologize," Will began, his voice uncharacteristically humble. "The way we handled the Disneyland trip was wrong. The way we've been treating you for years has been wrong." Melissa nodded, looking genuinely remorseful. "We took you for granted, Patsy. We assumed you'd always be available on our terms without considering your feelings or needs. When you disappeared for over a month," Will continued, "it was a wake-up call. We realized how much we rely on you not just for practical help, but as the heart of this family." "The kids missed you terribly," Melissa added. "They kept asking when you'd call next, what city you were visiting. They made a map to track your journey." I felt a warmth spreading through my chest, but maintained my composure. "I appreciate your apology. The trip was good for all of us, I think. It gave me a chance to rediscover myself, and perhaps it gave you both some perspective." "More than some," Will admitted. "We've had a lot of conversations about how we've been treating you. It wasn't right, and it's going to change." "I'd like that," I said simply. "But there are going to be some changes from my side, too." I explained about my Barcelona apartment and my plans to spend 3 months there each year. Their shocked expressions were almost comical. "Barcelona? You bought an apartment in Spain," Will repeated incredulously. "It's a beautiful city with perfect winter weather," I explained. "And the apartment is in a wonderful location. You're all welcome to visit, of course. The guest bedroom has a pull-out couch for the children." "You want us to visit you in Barcelona?" Melissa asked, as if trying to process a foreign concept. "If you'd like to," I replied. "The apartment will be my home for part of the year, just as Phoenix is my home the rest of the time. I'm not disappearing from your lives. I'm just living mine more fully." Over the following months, our relationship underwent a remarkable transformation. Sunday dinners resumed, but now they rotated between my house and theirs. Will began calling, just to chat, not only when he needed something. Melissa made genuine efforts to include me in family activities. Most touching was their reaction when I explained my revised financial plans. "I've established college trust funds for the children," I told them, "but I won't be paying their private school tuition anymore. That responsibility should be yours as their parents." Instead of the anger or disappointment I'd feared, Will nodded thoughtfully. "That's more than fair, Mom. We should have taken over those payments years ago." By Christmas, they'd booked tickets to spend New Year's week with me in Barcelona. Watching my grandchildren gaze in wonder at Sagrada Familia and taste their first authentic Spanish churros became one of the most precious memories of my life. The following summer, I joined a small group tour to Japan, another destination Jack and I had dreamed of visiting. Will and Melissa not only supported my plans, but helped me research Japanese customs and packed a special travel first aid kit for me. Now, 3 years into my new life chapter, I've found a balance I never thought possible. I'm a loving grandmother when in Phoenix, an expatriate embracing Spanish culture during winter months, and an intrepid traveler discovering new destinations each summer. The greatest gift has been watching my son and his family learn to value me as a person, not just a convenience. Our relationship is now built on mutual respect rather than obligation and expectation. Have you ever had to step back from people taking you for granted to help them see your true worth? Share your experiences in the comments below. If my story inspired you to reclaim your own power or pursue dreams you've set aside, hit the like button and subscribe for more stories of late life renewal and rediscovered joy. Remember to share this with anyone who might need encouragement to prioritize their own happiness. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, it's never too late to begin again.